Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
sure. Thank you and everyone for joining again our inaugural webinar of the College and Career Readiness webinar series. Again, my name is Ryan Char. Rotary District 5000, which is the state of Hawaii. I'm the youth service chair for this year, and I'd like to again acknowledge Naomi Masuno, our district governor, on the call. Me and my co-chair helper Valerie Wang are putting on this series, and we're excited to offer this to all of our students here in Hawaii, our high schoolers who are interested in going to college and want to make their college applications, common applications, as best as they can be. And we're really excited to offer kind of this first series. There'll be more coming up that hopefully pique your interest, and I'm sure financial aid will pique your interest, and that's going to be the next one. But today we're focusing on the common application. So I know, we're excited to offer this, and I think at the beginning of this series, we just want to tell you a little bit about Rotary, tell you a little bit about Interact, which is Rotary's high school community service and youth service club. And then we'll go ahead and introduce you to our featured speaker, Donna Ramos Barsana, who is from the Pacific University of Oregon. And so we'll get to that here, but I wanted to go through a few things first before we get to her. So Valerie, if we could go to the next one. So yeah, again, welcome again. This program is specifically was geared to Interact, but I'm more happy to welcome everyone here in high school to this program. But I want to share a little bit about Interact for you because it is a high school community service and youth service club that is open to you as high schoolers. It is a Rotary sponsored club, so all of the Rotary clubs that within the state of Hawaii are sponsoring Interact clubs within specific schools that are both private and public in the DOE. It is open to both high schoolers and middle schoolers if you're interested, but I know everyone here is in high school and should be a senior ready to go up to college. The mission of the club really is to take action and do community service in your communities, work with your peers, both within your high school and within other high schools. I know I've done many joint projects with the Roosevelt High School Interact Club, which is the club that I sponsor specifically. And really the point of it is to make friends, gain experiences, and just enjoy yourselves and make a difference in your community. And I think that's something that our youth is very, very interested in nowadays, and we're glad to see it. Is making a big difference in Hawaii's community, especially now in these challenging times. And so these are Interact by the numbers, just so you're interested. I think Interact is a international organization. And so I don't know if our current interactors even know that it is an international organization. And there are opportunities now with Zoom and virtual things to do projects with people all over the world. And so that's what Interact is and what it is about. And I'd like to turn it to Valerie to maybe tell you, what it might mean to you specifically. And so Valerie, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. So Interact is, as Ryan mentioned, a Rotary sponsored youth service club, primarily for high school students, but it's also expanded to middle school students. And while there's certain pillars that it follows, and it really leads you to a ton of different opportunities, we wanted to review what's in it for you. Some of you folks are juniors in high school, some of you folks are seniors in high school. Either way, you have the whole school year ahead of you, so there's plenty of time to really take advantage of a lot of the incredible programs. I am a former Interactor myself, so I'll kind of walk you through my journey and why I joined Interact and what I got out of it. Because I think that might be able to shed some light on what you can too. But really for you specifically, there's leadership opportunities, obviously the obvious ones within the club itself, club president, club leadership. There's leadership opportunities on a district level. I was an event producer early on in my career. I worked on the VMAs and the movie awards, and I got all of my event production background through Interact. So I really wouldn't have had that world open to me if it weren't for kind of my leadership roles that I volunteered for within Interact. Mentorship opportunities. Rotary, there's 1.2 million Rotarians around the world, I believe, probably higher. And they're all willing to be mentors, and they're in every single industry in every single country. So all you have to do is ask. And Rotarians are more than willing to take time out of their day to meet with you and talk to you about your career path, to review your resume, to work with you on interview skills. And it's free. You know, this is an incredibly valuable resource that's available at your fingertips with that career development. So you can seek out Rotarians that are in the industry you're interested in and have one-on-one meetings with them. It's an international organization, like Ryan mentioned, so there's plenty of travel opportunities. I myself, I've been to Guatemala to deliver wheelchair foundations with the Rotary's partnership with the Wheelchair Foundation, as well as Rotoplas, which is when they were doing surgeries for children with cleft lip palate, which was an incredibly eye-opening experience. It's also where I realized I don't like blood and I will never be a surgeon. But just to have that type of travel opportunity, you know, I've traveled to Mexico to help build houses, service opportunities, obviously locally, right? That's what Interact is known for as a service-based club. And then most importantly, I think lifelong friends. I was in Interact 20 years ago, and some of the folks that were supposed to come to my wedding 3 months ago, which is now delayed because of coronavirus, I met through Interact. So really, it's a really special organization to be a part of. Interact has a number of different programs available. RILA, which you may have heard of, it's Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. Every district puts on their own. Our district is really special. We have a RILA camp on each island. And then this year, because it's gone virtual, there's one RILA for all the islands, which is the team working on it's making it really special this year. And I'm also a RILA graduate. You learn a lot. It's just, I've been to a ton of summer camps. Nothing can top RILA. And I say that with every ounce of passion in my bones. Youth exchange program. So if you're interested in going to another country, you can do a 3-day to a 1 year. So you can go for a semester, you can go for a year. If you don't really want to do that commitment, but you want to travel, you can go for a couple days. We hosted a couple folks from Japan in California for a weekend. You get to meet them, they get to meet you. And then from a scholarship standpoint, Hawaii, our district also has a Hawaii Rotary Youth Foundation scholarships, which we'll talk more about on our October 31st session. And then as mentioned beforehand, there's definitely opportunity to travel internationally on different service trips. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes telling you a little bit about my story, even though I kind of sprinkled it in on this slide. But truthfully, or embarrassingly, I joined Interact because I needed something to put on my college application. And I said, Interact, Rotary. It was completely selfish. I thought it would be a great way to buff up my resume, my college application, and get some sort of leadership thing that I could put on it. And what ended up happening was it changed my life so much that I talked about Interact in every single college essay. And then it was part of every single interview I had when I was interviewing for internships later. So this is, you know, my journey. I was an interactor. I hosted a student through Rotary Youth Exchange. I was a RILA graduate. And then for those of you who are seniors, I do want to spend a couple minutes and talk about the next progression of Interact, which is Rotaract. There's university-based Rotaract clubs as well as community-based Rotaract clubs, depending on which career path you want to take. And similar to Interact, it has very similar values. It's sponsored by a Rotary club, and there's international travel opportunities. But I think from a college or a career development standpoint, that's really where being a part of Rotaract just opens your world to internship opportunities, career development opportunities. And when you're 18, 19, freshman, sophomore in college, you don't really know what you want to be. And so having access to Rotarians, some of whom have been in their career for 30, 40, 50 years, some of whom, like Ryan and myself, have been in we're not going to age us, but 20 years. 10, 20 years. But there's Rotarians of all ages, and they can really talk to you about the different phases and the different stages of your career, and just be there as a free resource and guide. And then of course, after Rotaract, there's Rotary, and it's every Rotarian's dream to see interactors turn into Rotarians. So just wanted to share a little bit about my story, and also how Interact has completely changed my life. I hope you guys, if you're not part of it, I hope you'll join. And this is same slide, but just again, that journey I talked about.
Yeah, so thanks, Valerie. I hope you consider Interact. I know that today's presentation, I just wanted to give you all in high school here a thought of what Interact can do for you. And if you're interested, please, again, reach out to me, either myself or Valerie. I think our email address here is youthservice@rotaryd5000.org. But I do want to thank you all for attending and get to the main event here. And it's my pleasure really to introduce you to Donna Ramos Barsana, who is the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions at Pacific University in Oregon. But even though she works for Pacific University, she's located here on Oahu's North Shore. She was born and raised there. She was a high school counselor though before here in Hawaii, and is currently though the Associate Director of Admissions, and has been working with students. Like she said this morning, she was up at 5:30 presenting to prospective high school students like yourself from all over the country, and having folks from Hawaii too that were very interested. And here, she does this common application tips and tricks program for folks to help you and help everyone who is filling out the common application prepare the best common application that they can. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to her so she can really get you all some great information about how to make your common application the best they can be. So thank you, Donna. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for that amazing introduction. I was like, wow, I feel like I did something with my life. So thank you so much, Ryan, for that introduction. Thank you for all of you for having me here today. Like Ryan said, my name is Donna Ramos Barsana. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions. Fancy title for I'm the one who admits the students, provides scholarships, and also kind of is your go-to person through the college process. I oftentimes, because I do a lot of general application workshops or financial aid or scholarships, just talking about college in general, students will reach out to me all the time, not just for going to Pacific, but just like, hey, Auntie Donna, like, can I talk to you about my essay? Can I talk to you about financial aid? So after this presentation, you guys, I'll have my contact information, so you can feel free to reach out to me if you have some questions about the college process in general. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you guys can see my presentation and not my Amazon cart. We doing okay? All right, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk to you guys about the common application and some tips and tricks and do's and don'ts. I know some of you may have already started your common application, so hopefully you'll still find something that you're like, hey, maybe I gotta go back and make some changes. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you haven't already done so, you can go ahead and go to commonapp.org. It's a free website for you to use and create an account either on the top right or in the Apply Now button. Really quick and easy to do that. When you're applying, majority of you are seniors this year. So what I would encourage you to do is you'll be a first-year student. And even if you've taken some college classes, you'll still be considered a first-year student. The only time you'd be considered a transfer student is after you've graduated, then attending another institution, and then wanting to change to another school. So that's when you'd only apply as a transfer student. Aside from that, you'll be considered a first-year student, even with college classes. So this is something that's very common in Hawaii, where a lot of people have other preferred names because you have a long Hawaiian name or even an English name. Maybe your name's Elizabeth and you go by Liz. So I tell students moving forward through the application process, try your best to use your legal name. And what you can do just to help with that whole process is, let's say you're emailing a college and you prefer they call you Mahea instead of Mahealani. You can put your legal name in your signature. So create like a generic signature with your full name so that our computer can recognize that this is the same Mahealani that also sent in their transcript, their FAFSA, and everything like that. All universities have a database that links everything. So if you emailed us, if you called us, if you sent in transcripts or applied, or attended a tour, a virtual meeting, everything's tracked. And where that benefits you is that, let's say I'm reviewing your application. I go ahead and check my history with you and with our university, and then I'll see like, wow, you did a couple virtual events. You've also emailed me a few times. I've talked to your mom. So it's only going to benefit you. But to do that, we need your legal name to appear somewhere on that document. Another thing that I also want to point out is their social security number. And I know a lot of you may get nervous about submitting your social security number on the Common App. And the reason why this is important is because once you are admitted to a school, our financial aid office receives like a notification that says, okay, Valerie has been accepted. Do we have a financial aid on a FAFSA on her? Only way that we're going to be able to link it is by social security number, because believe it or not, even a name like Valerie Wang, which is unique, we have a ton of students with that same name, and sometimes even in the same state. So what we do is compare the social security number with that. Okay, and it's secure, so not to worry. So with the Common Application, there's 5 different tabs that are available. So you have your dashboard, My Colleges, Common App, College Search, and Financial Aid Resources. So we're going to go ahead and dive in and take a look. So they're all going to appear at the top. And so you can click. My Colleges is going to have all the schools you're kind of interested in applying. You don't have to apply to all the schools that are listed there, but it just kind of gives you that one-stop shop for all your schools to be listed. The Common App is your Common App that you will be sending to all your schools. So just a general rule of thumb, anything in this Common Application tab, remember it gets sent to all schools. So you don't want to be school specific in your essays because all the schools are going to get the same essay. Where you want to be more specific for the school will be in the supplemental questions, which I'll kind of take a look at that. College search. You always hear that counselors will tell you, oh, cast your net really wide. Look at all your options. Look at different colleges. This is a way for you to see all the schools that are listed on Common App, over 900 schools that are on there. Financial aid resources. If you're going through the process for the first time and your parents are like, you know what, I don't understand FAFSA. How can we afford to pay for your schooling, pay out of state tuition, all that kind of stuff? There's a financial aid resource tab. But on the top right-hand corner is kind of like your general information. Your CAID on the top right is kind of like your social security number or your ID for your Common App. So if you're emailing schools, go ahead and say, I applied to your school. I just wanted to make sure you received it. Put in your CAID, which allows us to quickly find your application. Like I said, Common App has 900 schools are on there, ranging from big schools, small schools, private schools, out-of-state schools, all kind of different schools, from smaller schools all the way to schools like Stanford. Lots of schools that are on there on the Common Application. Makes it really easy for you to apply to multiple schools. So let's take a look. So let's say you're trying to figure out what schools you want to apply to. On the top right-hand corner is going to have the application requirements. And this is just kind of take a look and see what happens. So if you're looking at the application requirements, it's really important for you to be able to see what kind of deadlines they have and whatnot. So type is going to be generally, if you're looking for a gender specific type of school, you guys can take a look at that. Early decision is, as you may or may not know, is a binding contract that you have with the school. So unless you're 120 million% sure that you want to go to that school, apply for early action or preferred deadlines. Early decision is a binding decision. The only way you can really get out of it is if you have like a financial hardship and you're unable to pay for that tuition. So just to let you know, it's a binding contract. Early decision or early action 1 and early action 2 are kind of the preferred deadlines for universities. Early action 1 gives you the maximum opportunity for scholarships and competitions and resources. So if you can, try to get your application by the early action 1 deadline. Early action 2 is the second wave of application. So if you're unable to get in your application by that time, submit it by the early action 2 deadline. Rolling admissions. The reason why rolling admissions is so important is because let's say you apply to all these great schools in November or December. You get your financial aid packages in about March, April, depending on the school. May 1st is your deadline, and then you find out that these schools that you apply to are way over budget. They are way too expensive for you to attend, and you're panicking, right? You don't know where you should apply to. Rolling admissions has, as you can see, later dates in July, dates in June, that they're still accepting applications. So you want to go back into Common and find out who's currently still accepting applications so that you know that there's still a chance for you to get scholarships, financial aid in a quick amount of time before school starts. Okay, so let's say you're trying to look for a school. Obviously, if you search a school like a keyword like Pacific, a bunch of schools are going to be on there. but let me go ahead and take a look and see what we have to offer. So if you look at the three buttons, or the three dots on the right, it's going to ask for college information, college website, and admissions office. As universities, we update this every single year. So it's the most up-to-date information. I know for some of you students, it's so much easier in your opinion to be able to just go on a website and try to look for that information. But every website's different. Every college website labels things differently, but at least this way, it has all the information that is relevant to what you're wanting to know. So let's kind of dive in and see what information it shows. So it has information like the phone number for the university, the email address. So if you want to get to find out if things have been submitted on your behalf, go ahead and email that. Email the website, and that is actually going to give you the general line, and what whoever receives that email is going to forward it on to your admissions counselor. So fun fact about admissions counselor territories, every single counselor at a school has a territory. So it's based on region, not by last name, not by gender, not by demographic information. It's based primarily on where you live, what high school you attend. So for example, if you're trying to get a hold of someone with Pacific, I'm the one that reviews all the applications coming from the state of Hawaii and the Bay Area of California. Same thing. So if you're getting in touch with a school and your other friend's like, hey, I don't know who to contact for Pacific, you can share the information with them on who to contact because it's the same person. So when you go on the websites, be aware that counselors are assigned by region, okay? If you have to send your documents by snail mail is what the students call it now. By mail, you can go ahead, there's a website or there's an address right there. You can send your documents, letter of recommendation, transcripts, or you can fax it in, whatever you think would be best. Another thing that I want to note is that there's an application fee on there. All students who are currently on this webinar is going to get a free application to Pacific University, Oregon, if you'd like to use it. Completely up to you. But I always recommend when I was a high school counselor that I would tell them, hey, go email all your schools or go call them and ask them if they have application fee waiver. And two things can happen. Either one, they can say, yep, we got an application fee waiver. Here's the steps. Or say, you know what, unfortunately we don't. However, what are you interested in studying? What's your major? Are you interested in a couple activities that I can get you connected with some of our directors? So it allows them to at least get to know you. So only good things can come with you communicating with them and saying, hey, I'm a senior at such and such school. I'm interested in your bio program. I'm working on my applications. Do you by any chance have an application fee waiver? Thank you so much for your time. Sincerely, so-and-so. So that's something to note. But if you're interested in applying to Pacific University, Oregon, it's really quick and easy. Add us as one of your My Colleges. And the third question in our supplemental questions, remember how I said all schools have supplemental questions? So on the third one, it's going to ask if you intend to use a school-specific fee waiver. You select admissions counselor, which is me, and I will waive your application fee. Quick and easy. If you have friends that you think might be a good, want to use this opportunity, go ahead and share those instructions with them. And it doesn't matter to me for people to pay the application. I'd rather people not have to pay that is applying. So if we're looking at the common application, it's divided into 6 different tabs: profile, family, education, testing, activities, and writing. So let's take a look. So when you're clicking on profile, it's going to have all your demographic information. This is kind of where you put your preferred name. So if you prefer a certain name that you want to be called or known as in college, remember that we send this out to your RAs, your professors, any staff member, because we want to be, we want to make sure that you're being called what you want to be called for various reasons. So just a note that when you put there, it's getting sent to all the department heads. When you're looking at family information, you want to put as much information as you can. I know that for some of you, you may not know information on a particular parent or guardian. That's okay. Just put whatever you know. And the reason why this is important is because one of the questions is asking if it's English is your parent's first language, or what is your parent's first language. So it allows us to say, okay, maybe we're going to need to provide support for you. Or if they went to college, did they go to college? My parents didn't go to college. And so when I was going through the process, when I indicated I'd be the first to go to college of my family, there were so many resources for me to help me understand the process. So it can only benefit you. Another thing to note is that when you're listing your parents, I know by default, some of us will typically put our dad first or our mom first, just by just what we usually do. I want to let you know that the way that this works on Common App, you want to put your first parent as a person who you want us to contact for anything with the college process. So if I'm trying to get a hold of you, and this has happened many times, I try to get a hold of a student, and of course, their voicemail box is not set up, or I can't even leave a message because it's completely full. So clean up your inbox, set up your inbox so that I can communicate you. And then of course, you're not going to answer if it's a number you don't know. I don't do that myself. So if I can't get in touch with you, I'm going to go ahead and reach out to your parent and say, hi, I'm Donna. I'm trying to get in touch with your student about a scholarship. If they could submit test scores to me, it'd really benefit. So I just want you to know that that's something that we're going to be able to do for you guys moving forward, is that communication with parents. Okay, so when we're looking at education, there's so many different tabs. I know it gets super overwhelming as you go through the process. You want to be able to put your current school on there, your secondary school. If you've attended other high schools, you put that in other secondary information. If you have any college credits, you're doing dual credit or something like that, you can list the other universities you want to be a part of, grades. The reason why this is important is sometimes there's discrepancies from what you feel that your cumulative GPA is and what is actually submitted. So for example, I had a student who submitted her high school GPA and her cumulative GPA, and then she asked me, did you receive my community college credits? Because that's supposed to be factored into my GPA. It would give me a 4.2. And I told her, no, I actually only have your high school transcript. Can you get that sent over to me? So it just allows us to double check and make sure we have the correct cumulative GPA, because it does play a role in scholarships. Honors, any honors that you've been a part of, any awards, any classes, any recognition that you've had, you can go ahead and put that information there. Community-based organizations are mainly for if you have anyone who's working with you through this process that is helping you with college, that's like, for example, Kamehameha Scholars or maybe Gear Up or something like that, you can put that information there. Future plans, I know students, this is a question that provides a lot of anxiety when you have auntie, uncle, parents saying, what's your major? What are you gonna be for the rest of your life? And it sounds intimidating. And I tell students, don't think of your career as like a 30-year mortgage that you're tied to for the rest of your life. I tell students, think of your career option as kind of like a bucket list. Like, who do you want to be in your early 20s? Who do you want to be in your late 20s? Maybe your early 30s or 40s. I think I'm in my third career. And if you had to ask me as a 17-year-old that I was going to be in something as an admissions director, I would have thought you were crazy. I wanted to be a dolphin trainer, I think, at SeaWorld at 17. So I tell students, there's a lot of things can change. So try to put for the future plans what you want to be in your 20s, your early 20s. What do you want to start off as? And we know that that changes over time. So with testing, a lot of schools are test optional. Pacific is one of them. You don't have to submit test scores for the admissions process. But I also want you to know that there's a difference between test optional for the admissions process and test optional for scholarships. So like in our case, we don't look at test scores to be admitted because we don't want you to have a disadvantage in terms of the admissions process. However, test scores, if you have a passing score, plays a point, one of the 7 points in your scholarship. So for example, Pacific offers between $15,000 to $27,000 per year, looking at your common application, your essay, letter of recommendation, activity, classes, and SAT and ACT. So just to let you know, even though you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to retake it, note that the test is only 1 point in the bigger scale of your scholarship. So don't feel like you have to take it. You just want to do really, really well on the other components. But if you decide to take it, you can, for an extra point on your scholarships for different schools. So activities. So there's 10 that you can pick from. They offered an amazing opportunity at the beginning of this meeting for you to join different opportunities and service and those kind of things. We want to know about them. So on the collegiate side, you want to put any clubs you've been a part of, any community service engagement you have, hobbies. If you currently watch your siblings, and that's why you probably weren't involved in lots of sports or activities, put that information. We want to know what has been occupying your time since you've been in the 9th grade. And if you don't know, if you forget, take some time. Use this Saturday, use on Sunday, and write down 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, and list all of them. List all your community service, list all your activities, list all your hobbies. And you want to go ahead and be sure you're indicating them because it's 10. You want to put the leadership roles at the first part of your application on activities, the ones that you've actually played a bigger role in, so that we can see that first. But 10 is what you have that limit. So when we're looking at the writing section, I just want to let you know that you have supplemental questions. So for each university, there's one, so as little as one. So we have one essay that's how does specific fit in your long-term and educational goals. And then places like Stanford that has like 10 essays that you need to write. So big range depending on the school. So I want to give you a tip on this. So when you're submitting the supplemental questions, I highly encourage you to be as specific as possible. So for example, let's say I was applying to a school and I said, my name is Donna. I'm interested in your psychology program. I feel like you have a strong program in clinical psych, and it will help me become a high school counselor in the future. I give that like a C- because that essay, as brief as it was, can be applied to any school. Instead, what if you wrote an essay, a supplemental essay for a school that says, I'm interested in going to Pacific University, Oregon, because of the strong program in clinical psychology, emphasizing on school counseling. I would love to partner with Dr. Allison Burns Glover and her research with Hawai'i students because that's where I'm originally from. And I'd love to work with her and partner with the 3 schools in Hawaii, California, and in Washington to be able to advance in my wanting to be a high school counselor. So as you can see, I cited more specific examples. I looked on their website. I kind of was able to draw examples together with working with my essay. So for these supplemental questions, you want to be detailed. You want to be exact. The counselors want to know that you actually looked up information and know a little bit more about their school. So try to be as specific as possible. So with the common application, there's all these questions that you could possibly write about that get sent to all the schools. These are the prompts. So either background identity or interest or talent, a challenge or setback or failure, when you've questioned or challenged the belief, a problem you'd like to solve, a period of time of growth and new understanding, a topic idea that you find engaging. So there's something for everyone. I tell students that a lot of these prompts can be related to a lot of scholarship essays. So my advice to you is to kind of look at these prompts and maybe make a few bullet points, because these questions are going to come up constantly throughout your college process as you apply to different scholarships. So you want to know what you may be writing about. But if none of these prompts interest you, there's also the last prompt. Share an idea on any topic of your choice, one that you've already written or one of your own designs. So you can, they kind of made it super easy for you. Here's some topics. If not, submit something you've already written that you're proud about. So if you have any questions, please let me know on that. But just again, like I mentioned with your common application essay, the general one, it's sent to multiple schools, and you don't want to be embarrassed that you cited a school thinking it was going to go to the one school when it went to everyone. So just to make sure, common app essay is for everyone, supplemental for specific schools. So now we're going to talk about essays. I know it's one of those things that a lot of my students say, okay, Auntie Donna, like I did everything, but the essay, like I don't know how to write. I don't know what I want to write about. So I tell students that you want to think outside the box. You want to make sure your grammar is on point, and punctuation. And you want to ask yourself, what are colleges going to take away from reading this essay? Does it represent me well? And so I tell students, ask yourself the question, because when you're writing an essay, a lot of times students fall into the trap. Let's say you talk about baseball She's talking about baseball. You talk about your experience with baseball, constantly with your experience. And at the end, you say, the skills have, baseball has taught me patience, and I plan to do that at college. I plan to have patience, teamwork, and all that kind of stuff in one short paragraph. I tell students, flip it. So instead of going 80% the experience, 20% conclusion on how it's going to apply to schools, flip it and say instead 20% of the experience, 80% about now what, so what. So asking yourself that question, so what, so what? What does that matter? Why should I care the fact that you did that community service project? Why should I care that you love the beach? Why should I care that you participate in the activity? So thinking about asking yourself that question. The next question is now what? Now what are you going to do because you've had that experience? How are you going to be a great student or the best candidate for my university? What are you going to do with that? So I tell students, think about these questions on what you want the university to take. This is your time to not just write a narrative and just talk about a lot of fluff. It's your chance to showcase why you should be admitted and how you're going to contribute to the school and to the community and globally. So just to make note, and I'd be more than happy to read essays, but let's kind of dive in and talk, let's show you some real life examples. So with this essay, punctuation, lowercase I is a no-no. So you want to make sure that your formatting and punctuation is on point. As you can see, this is one paragraph. Remember in elementary school when they said divide it into paragraphs? You want to be able to do that now you're in college. So there's a section where you can view a PDF version of your application. So you can make sure that when you copy it and paste into the document, it shows the exact grammar, or sorry, the exact format that you want it to be. Here's another one. So this student talks about fishing, great opportunity, but he also talks about how he is going to be applying it to baseball and environmental science. There's some good paragraphs. Better essay. This student really paints the picture. So she also goes in talking about how she wants to be involved in different clubs. She talks about how she's relationship oriented. She's a big advocate for social justice. So as an administrator, I'm going to think, wow, I would really love for her to be a part of our school because she's kind of twisted it so that we can kind of see, okay, even though she had this experience, how is she going to be contributing to my school? Like I mentioned, I will say this. If you're reading your first 2 lines of your own essay and you are bored, can you imagine how bored we will be as administrators when we're reading your essay? So if you feel like you read and you're like, I don't even care, I want you to start fresh or revamp your beginning and your conclusion, because you really want to drive it home or you really want to start strong and end strong. Because we all know when we read articles, what do? We scroll, right? We scroll through, we look at the top, we see if it grabs our attention, and we scroll, look through the paragraphs. And then at the end we say, okay, what is your concluding? What is your takeaway? So I will tell you this, my most favorite essay of all time. And this student got into Ivy League schools and I read her essay. She said, if you want to know more about me, ask me now what my favorite color is or what I like to do for fun. Ask me how I eat a potato chip. I was like, what? Potato chip? So she talks about that she doesn't eat folded potato chips because that means less surface area, which means less flavor. She's categorized them by shelf life. She's made a spreadsheet on the average chip per bag so she can figure out how much money she's getting or how many chips she's getting for her per dollar. So she's really done her homework. She's kind of like Monica on Friends, right? So she could have said, hey, my name is Jessica. I'm detail oriented. I love spreadsheets. I'm very organized. Or she instead said, ask me how I eat a potato chip. Which one would you rather read? Potato chip, right? So I tell students, don't expect to be a philosopher at 17 or 18 years old. Don't quote people. Don't show other people's work. Showcase yourself. It's your time to be a little quirky, a little bit unique, but you really want people to remember your essay. So when we're going ahead and looking at the different sections, you want to be sure that everything is marked green in this. So green indicates that every single part of that section has been completed. If one of them is not green, you want to dive in and make sure that you you didn't forget on one of the questions. So double check, you want to make sure everything is marked green. On the top right hand, there's a preview that you can go ahead and take a look, a PDF version of the different sections and a profile tutorial or a tutorial on the different section to talk about some tips and tricks. So you want to take a look at that and spend your time looking at it. So the last thing is that you want to go ahead and make sure that you submit all the questions for the different universities, and then you hit review and submit. But before you do that, there is a preview when you hit review and review a PDF. So it looks like this. So you're seeing exactly what we see on the application side. So double check everything, make sure all your activities are there, make sure your formatting looks good on your essay. Just double check, want to make sure that you can see everything, because when you're clicking through different modules or the different sections, it's so easy to forget what you put in different sections, but this kind of gives a big overview. And then once you hit submit, anxiety levels again go up because you're like, oh my gosh, did I do the right thing? Should I hit submit? Should I give it more time? You start to get really anxious because the circle's kind of going over and over and it's processing. But then you are immediately congratulated. There's confetti on your screen. It's green. It seems welcoming. You're celebrating. And you submitted your application, in this case, to Pacific University, Oregon. So you get a big congratulations. And then you get an automatic email from Common App. So it will say that you've submitted your school or your application to whatever school it is. So you can double check, because some students are like, oh, I hit submit for my schools, but I thought it went to everyone. And I said, no, you have to hit submit for every individual school in your My Colleges. Even if you've completed everything, you have to go in and hit submit for every school. And just to let you know, just because you hit submit doesn't mean your application is complete. A lot of schools need your test scores or your transcripts or your letter of recommendation. You don't have to send it all pretty in one time. You can go ahead and submit your application first. And when letters of recommendation are available, send that in, or your transcript. It's not going to be read until everything has been submitted. So like I told you in the beginning, contact all your schools to make sure that they've received everything. Okay? It takes 2 seconds to send an email or give a call. You don't want to be caught in a trap where you thought everything was submitted and unfortunately there was a discrepancy with technology and we didn't receive a document. So you missed out on some deadlines, okay? A couple tips that I wanna make sure that you guys are aware of. So on the Common Application, or in a lot of applications, you're able to talk about how COVID has affected you and your family, especially with finances. That's a big thing. So just note that you can talk about it on your application so that we can be aware and how we can support you. There's a lot of test optional schools that are on there. So you can just search in Google what schools are test optional. I've been in a lot of conferences with different universities and majority of them are either going test optional or test blind. So just to let you know that that's something that a lot of schools are taking into account for this, at least for this upcoming year. Now that test scores are out of the way, guess what's going to have to play a role? GPA. So you want to be sure that your GPA is as strong as possible. If you had a little bit of a hardship with GPA in the beginning of your freshman year or sophomore year, there is the additional information section. So in the Common Application, there's an additional information section, which is open-ended. So you can put information that you want to share so that you can advocate for yourself. For example, some students will just give a nice paragraph on why they should be admitted. And other students will say, hey, I just wanted to let you know that my GPA wasn't so great. I'll be honest, I didn't care much about school. I hung out with my friends a lot. But as you can see, when I became a sophomore, I decided to take an honors class. I joined 2 different clubs. I started helping my family more and doing well on different service projects. So you want to take that time to advocate for yourself on the additional information, either talk about how strong you are or an area that's particularly weak on your application and how you're stronger. So you want to put that. There's a lot of different apps that you can pick from on your Apple Store, Google Play Store. Common App has its own app, so you can get notifications on deadlines. I always tell my students, I challenge them. I said, okay, on your home screen, on your phone, I know we have a ton of distracting apps. I mean, I think I definitely procrastinate in different times. So I tell students, now you're preparing for college, I challenge you to put all your distracting apps into one folder and put like don't touch or whatever you want to label it, and push it on the far, far, far end of your home screen on another page. Then instead, in the closer part of your home screen, put the things that matter. Put links to the websites for different schools you're looking at. Put your Common App, put scholarship, financial aid, FAFSA, put all those apps kind of more readily available, so you have to see those first before you scroll to the other screens and get distracted, right? So you're like, okay, where should my focus and attention be? Should it be on Twitter? Should it be on TikTok? Should it be on Snapchat or Instagram? Or should it be on FAFSA? Should it be on scholarships, Hawaii Community Foundation, Common App? Where should my attention be? So I challenge you guys to do that for your own apps. Another thing is creating a spreadsheet for your scholarships. I know that it gets overwhelming when mom or dad or whoever has new papers and says, can you do this application? Can you work on this scholarship? And then you get inundated with so many different opportunities. It's so hard to wrap your head around it. So I recommend for you to get all the information first, spend a Saturday, Sunday, go to local businesses, or it's a little different right now, but at least go on the websites and find out if they have some scholarships. Put it on a spreadsheet. What's required? Do they need a letter of recommendation, test score, transcript, and what are their essay prompts, so that you can realize, oh, the Coca-Cola Foundation is the same as Takatani Scholarship in Hawaii. I'm just going to use the same one. So it just allows you to kind of create a game plan and a plan of attack. So you don't go, work on one application, then you do another one, then you kind of are all over the place. Look and see what you have available and figure out where you want to prioritize your time. Another thing is that YouTube tutorials are on FAFSA, financial aid, applying for scholarships. There's so many great resources out there. So instead of watching those videos that we know probably are a distraction, again, go look up on YouTube and look up some college readiness tutorials on YouTube. It's going to benefit you in the long run. A lot of universities like ourselves are creating step-by-step guides, or how to talk to admissions counselors, or how to pay for college, how to fill out FAFSA. So you want to check those YouTubes as much as you can. Another thing is to get to know your admissions counselor. Like I said, I'm the admissions counselor for all the students from Hawaii and the Bay Area of California. So I tell students this time and time again, because my director, so she's reached out to me almost every single year that I've been at Pacific, and she says, can you give me a list of your top 10 students? And I won't pick the 4.2 student. I'm not going to pick the student who has the perfect SATs. I base it on interaction. So I sent a list to her on my top 10 kids based on who contacts me, who reaches out to me, who emails me, who attends events. And all students received a $7,000 scholarship in addition to all the other scholarships that we got. So they received $28,000 just for working with me through this process. Get to know your admissions counselors, because there's so many resources that could pop up later on in the cycle, and you want to be sure that you're at the top of their mind for that. The last thing I want to leave you with is that if you want to set up a Zoom session with me to talk about either Pacific, the college process, scholarships and financial aid, essay edits, being recruited for athletics, figure out your major and minor, creating a 4-year plan if you're like Monica and friends and you want to know everything, if you want to study abroad and all that kind of stuff and do internships, or if you and your family want to set up a session with me to talk about college in general, I'd be happy to do that. And in order to do that, here's my contact information. So here's my email address and my direct line and cell. I know, so a lot of students, it's easier for them to send me a text and say, okay, Donna, I have some questions. Feel free to do that. There's my phone number, email address, so feel free to contact me anytime. I obviously selfishly want you to come to Pacific University, Oregon. It's a magical place. However, I just want to make college a possibility for you, bottom line. So let me know how I can support you through this journey. But thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I'll open up for questions.
Thanks, Donna. No, yeah, so please, for folks who are on the presentation, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. And you have this unfiltered access to Donna, our admissions counselor for Hawaii, for Pacific University, Oregon. So please, I encourage you to ask any questions here.
Yeah, I know. Or maybe I just covered everything. Maybe they're fine. They're like, oh, that was good. That was good. That was a lot of information. I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys learned at least one thing that you didn't know about the Common App or the college process. But yeah, I'll take a look at the chat. Another thing that I want to make sure that you guys remember, FAFSA is October 1st, which we're now in October 10th. So you want to be sure that you're working on your FAFSA as soon as possible. You want to be in the first wave of financial aid letters, because oftentimes I'll get the question, how much does it cost to go to your school? And that's kind of like a car salesman question, right? So you go to a car salesman, right? And you ask, okay, how much does it cost for the Tacoma truck or something? And they'll give you like the sticker price. Then you have the negotiation period and figuring out, okay, I don't need those bells and whistles. I don't need that. I have a better credit score. So the cost starts to go down as you start to have that conversation. Same thing on the college atmosphere. We all have a sticker price. So for example, it could be like $60,000. Who has that kind of money to pay $60,000 every single year? Not me. Not a lot of students do have that privilege. So I tell students asking for that cost is a kind of open-ended. What I tell students in response, I said, well, yeah, we're about $60,000. However, when you apply, you admitted you would get at least a $15,000 scholarship, goes up to $27,000 scholarships. You apply to outside scholarships within our school, ranging between $500 to $6,000 per year. Then you apply to all outside scholarships, and then you apply for financial aid. So there's so many different checkpoints to get your costs down. And we accept every single outside scholarship. So then you find out that it only costs you about $7,000 each year out of state, as opposed to $60,000. So I will help you with that. Oh, we got some questions. Can I fill out FAFSA during junior year? Great question. So it's only open for seniors. However, you can start looking at the steps for FAFSA because it's kind of an overwhelming process. So you can take a look at some of those video tutorials to be ready for your senior year, but it's mainly for seniors and you have to fill it out every single year because your financial situation changes over time. And we're actually going to have a session on financial aid and scholarships, how to pay for your education, and in our next one on Halloween. I know, scary, right? But it's gonna be able to help you. I'm gonna have my other colleague who specializes in financial aid, and she and I are gonna tag team and talk about some opportunities just in general about how to pay for college. Can I only make a Common App profile when I'm a senior? No, Alan. Actually, you can start working on your Common App now. You can start creating an account and it rolls over. So you can start working on it. You can edit it throughout your time, but you can work on that now. Should students take the ACT, SAT, or ACT college applications? Oh, that's a really good question. So I say it's up to you. What I recommend you to do is to contact your schools because some of them will know that they're going to continue to be test optional. So I would go ahead and reach out to them and find out if they are accepting it. And if they're not, then go ahead and focus on the other components of your application. I don't think I have 10 activities for the comment. Will this put me in disadvantage? No, Alan. So what I would recommend for you to do is, do you have at least 10 hobbies, right? So it doesn't have to be like activities. It doesn't have to be, it can be community service. It can be anything that you've been a part of since you're a freshman. So I hope you have at least maybe 5 hobbies that you have. And it can be anything from like, anything from arts or surfing or something like that. We just want to know what's occupying your time. I know sleeping and eating could be a hobby, but other hobbies that you may have. Should I make a Common Application account with my personal email or school email? Okay, good question. So first, I want all of you to hopefully have a professional email address because every single time you email me, I see your email address, and also tell your parents because some of them are reliving their teenage years and some of their email address are not as appropriate to send to colleges, and people don't realize that I see it clear right across my screen every single time you email. So first, create a professional email address, and that can be like your first letter of your name and your last name, or however you want to mix and match. Just not something like, there's so many crazy ones that I've seen, but It's up to you if you want to make, I actually recommend you making an email address that's going to be just sent to only schools. So you can put like Donna College Schools or something like that at gmail.com, so that you send all of the emails go to the one email address for college, and so that you can check it, because it does get overwhelming. I will tell you this, because everything's virtual now. A lot of my colleagues at different schools are like, I send emails like 2 times a week. And I'm like, oh my gosh, times that by 10, it's a lot of emails coming to your inbox. So I would suggest you create one that's just for college. Can I choose more than one prompt to answer? So you can do a couple of different things. So you can either submit the prompt that they have, and then maybe in the additional information section, if you want to put the other essay that you want to add in, or you can email it to your admissions counselor and they can attach it to your application to just have like a supplemental essay, but you're only required one. And you only are typically required only one academic letter of recommendation. Some students will tell me that, oh, my pastor knows me more, or my coach knows me more. They can be like an additional supplemental letter of rec, but we want an academic letter of recommendation. So a teacher or a counselor or administrator as our first priority. Yeah, good questions. You guys are asking really good ones. What else do we have, my friends?
I think they're well trained to type them into the chat, because we just talk out loud. But I know, let me re-emphasize, using a professional email. It's something that you wanna do, because even folks who apply to my company, I'm an architecture and engineering firm. People who apply to my company for internships have emails that you would not believe are their emails, and it's like, okay, always think twice about it. But anyway, there's another question.
Any advice you give for juniors? Okay. So I recommend you to use this time very wisely. So I know that sometimes my juniors are more on top of things than my seniors, but you guys are on top of it because you're sitting here with us on a Saturday. I mean, that's pretty overachiever in my book. So my advice is for you to continue to first look at the schools that you're interested in and sign up for their virtual visits, kind of get an overview. You don't want to wait till senior year to figure out what schools you want to do. I have even 8th graders that are jumping on virtual things. I mean, Bay Area, they have a different mindset. So, a lot of them are like, just want to hear more about different schools. And I tell them, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be your top 5 schools. It can just be a school that you're kind of interested in, because at these sessions, like the one I had this morning, I had professors on there. I had all kind of different staffs on financial aid, advising. So you can kind of hear how schools do different processes while you're a student, and it can just get an idea, and you can get connected. You're like, hey, you know what? I'm not interested in going to the school. I'm not too sure yet, but you can connect with a professor in psychology if that's your major and say, hey, I'm just trying to figure out, should I look at the top schools in psychology, or should I look at all schools that offer psychology? So they'll be more than happy to give you advice as a junior. My other tip for you guys is start working on your essay, because that's usually my deterrent for my seniors. They're like, I finished everything but the essay. I'm like, okay, you should have worked on that and spend a lot of time, like I said, your essay, your letter of recommendation. So get to know who you're having as your recommender. Don't wait till senior year to get to know them. Get to know them now, give them some chocolate macadamias and clean their room. So you want to get to know them as much as possible. You want to make sure, like I said, your essay, work on your activities, start looking at scholarships. These aren't going to be related to you specifically, and they may change, but it's just nice to see what's available. And so that you can put little notes and say, check on this my senior year for Coca-Cola or Bill Gates or Takatani Foundation or Rotary or something. So you want to make your list now, and just to kind of get an idea. But Alan, if you have any other questions with how to prepare for your junior year, you can more than happy to ask me.
Can I ask, before we get to the next question, can I ask a question just selfishly myself?
Ryan, you want to go back to school too?
The one thing to Alan's question was something I was doing in my junior year was thinking about which colleges I wanted to attend. And, fortunately for my family, I was able to go visit some. In this age of COVID and virtual and everything, are colleges doing like virtual tours, and are you able to jump into visit like a college virtually with someone, a college counselor or something like that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so all of us at the college level are all hands on deck. Just like your high school counselors, we're trying to figure out more ways to get you engaged, because I'm normally traveling in the fall to different high schools. And so we're like, how do we engage with them now that we can't travel? So we have, like for us, we have every Friday is a senior preview day, and even on Saturdays. That's why I had that this morning. So we have events for you guys to win scholarships. Every single school has a virtual option that you can meet one-on-one with the admissions counselor and talk about the school and talk about, questions you may have about the college process. I know we're having financial aid sessions for our school to talk about right now because of FAFSA. We have athletic meetings that are virtual. So, I mean, we've come up with a ton of options. So I recommend you to look at the admissions websites for whatever school you're looking at and look at their events, because a lot of it's going to be all listed right there. If I go to out-of-state college, can you pay in-state tuition after 1 year of attending that course?
We missed.
I missed one.
Yeah.
Oh, where can I look for scholarships? Okay, so there's a couple different ways. You can just look through Google search like fastweb.com, or there's a Scholly app. But I would suggest for you to talk to your high school counselor, because they have the most up-to-date information on resources within your community and also, more globally. So I would reach out to them because they have the most up-to-date information. And then to answer your question about the in-state tuition, so it depends on the school. So some schools may say, yeah, 1 year as a resident in California will give you in-state tuition. Some will say, nope, you need at least 2 years. Or I need to show that you are on the lease or something. They may have all these different regulations because it is a big discount to be an in-state student. So you want to check with the admissions counselor to be able to do that. Just to let you know, like with private schools, they don't have, a lot of them don't have out-of-state tuition. It's one flat rate. So for example, majority of our students at Pacific are from out of state, and they pay the same as an Oregon resident. So just to let you know that you have to reach out to them because they all have different regulations. So it's kind of hard to say. Can I ask a freshman year teacher as a recommender? I think, Raven, if that's a teacher who also has known you through the 4 years, I think that's perfect. If they only have experience working with you your freshman year, you want to go and provide them like with a resume or something, or maybe set up a little meeting with them to talk about what you've done since then, so they can indicate that in your application. What you don't want to have happen is that your recommender gives like a sentence version of your resume, if you understand what I mean, where they just kind of take your resume, type it out all pretty in a sentence. You want them to share something that's not on your application, something more unique about you. The fact that you help your classmates, the fact that you go above and beyond for all your projects. So you want them to have a unique experience, but I would talk to your counselor or your freshman year teacher and see if they're able to talk about that kind of stuff.
And I am, and thanks Raven for asking that question. I am her Interact Club advisor, and as an Interact Club advisor and a member of the business community myself, I've written several Common App recommendation letters for folks. And so, I think you want to talk to and get a recommendation from someone who knows you very well, so they can speak to you personally beyond what, just like Donna mentioned, just beyond your resume. So ask whoever, you're closest to, really. I think that's probably where I would start.
Yeah, and just to let you know that you don't want to put the responsibility on them to come up with the great things, because a lot of time when I had to write letters of recommendations, I had to write like over 100 when I was a high school counselor, and the students like, okay, can you get this done by like next week? It's due, and I'm like, at least give me 2 weeks. And there's some that I'm like, I have never talked to you ever. You've never said hi to me. You've never reached out to me. So you want to be sure that this person can freely write great things about you. And if say, hey, do you think you have time? It's due in 2 weeks. And they'll be honest with you. They say, you know, I'm really swamped. Is there someone else that could possibly write a letter of recommendation, or I can write one for another scholarship at a later time? And you just want to be understanding, because we know that there's some teachers out there that a lot of students reach out to because they're like, oh my gosh, I know they'll write a good one. So you want to be aware that it's not necessarily that they don't have time for you, it's just that the volume is so big sometimes. But you want to put that in your boat to be the one to be as marketable as possible. Don't make it their responsibility. What kinds of things should I have in my letter recommendation besides academics? Oh, okay, so Joy, so I would recommend, so the goal of the letter recommendation is to also see if they're going to be a successful student at a college or university. So you want to have your letter of recommendation talk about things that the admissions council are going to be like, oh, yes, this person will succeed at our school. So it can be anything from projects, it could be qualities that they have and display. So you just want to keep that in mind, that these recommendations are to showcase whether or not I think the student will be a contributing member to our school and to be successful at our type of institution. So it can be anything. These are great questions. You guys are doing fantastic. Must be a Saturday, because even in our 6 a.m. presentation that we had for 2 hours, the students were just flooding questions. I said, maybe we need to do all presentations on a Saturday morning. I don't know. I thought it'd be the opposite. But yeah, let me go ahead. I'm going to put my contact information again in here. So just in case you guys missed that slide.
And since we talked a little bit about scholarships and financial aid, and several of the questions referred to that, I did want to just remind folks here on the call and plug our next event, which will be on Halloween. It is a scary and spooky subject of financial aid, but we will be talking about how to do the FAFSA, what's important, and also go through the scholarship kind of process. As Valerie mentioned earlier today, Rotary has a scholarship application that each club is able to participate in. It's called the Hawai'i Rotary Youth Foundation Scholarship. And it's a great scholarship. I was a past recipient of that scholarship, and that's why I'm in Rotary right now. That's my story. And it's a $5,000 scholarship that you can use to go to your school of your choice. And I don't know, Donna, maybe we can go take a trip down memory lane and I can go post or compile some of the bigger scholarship opportunities that I remember when I was applying to college, and maybe just have a list of ones we can present. I don't know if you've shared something like that before in a previous presentation, but I know that there were a lot of different scholarship opportunities, whether it's through Boy Scouts or through other various community organizations, Hawai'i Community Foundation, things like that. There are other opportunities. And so Gwen and Gary just said HCF, which is the Hawai'i Community Foundation. So maybe we can do something like that for our next one, but I did want to just plug it. It'll be on October 31st, same time, same place. We'll make sure that the Zoom account password things and issues are all cleared up. Anyway, are there any other kind of final questions from anyone? This is your chance to chat it into the box for direct access to Donna, who's provided great insight thus far. And I wish I had this opportunity to attend a presentation like this when I was applying to college, because I could have used some of these tips and tricks when I was going. But anything else, I'll throw out one last chance here to anyone on the chat.
Yeah, and also I put my contact information on there. So if you think of anything later on and you want to ask me a question, feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, there's so many people who are on this Zoom who are here to help you and to provide whatever support. All of us have had some experience through the college process, so you can feel free to ask them for advice, any questions. But I really appreciate you taking this time on your Saturday. You could be doing many other cool things, but we appreciate you taking your time to be here. And I hope to see you guys next this Halloween on financial aid. So it's going to be a great presentation. And my colleague does a great job with making financial aid not seem as scary. So I look forward to seeing all of you. And I think one question popped up. So Joy, yes, so on October 17th, students, there is our Hawaii like counselor association, or it's called HACAC. And we're having a presentation. I'm actually one of the key speakers. So I'm actually presenting on the senior timeline and what you can do through your senior year and how to be ready for it. So there's a bunch of different speakers that are on there, but all of us, it's a crazy thing because it's like 6-minute presentations for every school in the virtual meeting. So we're going to be talking a little fast, but the great thing about it is that we're going to put only the information that's important, none of the fluff. So October 17th, which is next week. So go ahead and talk to your high school counselor to get registered for that, or you can go to the HACAC website.
Can we can share that with all the attendees for today? You can send us the website and we can.
Yeah, sure.
Blast it out, yeah.
I'll be sure to do that. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. You take care.
Thank you. And so again, I just want to thank Donna for, her presentation today, and just, we're here to really support all of you. And so again, she graciously has produced her contact information there. But again, thank you so much, Donna. Thank you so much for doing this presentation. And for the rest of us here, thank you for attending. We look forward to seeing you on the 31st. And so that's all we have for today.